So what's going on, everyone? Before we get into the video, I just want to say a couple things quickly. First of all, this video is going to be a little bit longer than what my normal videos are, but that's for a good reason, because I'm going to be packing this video with as much information as possible, and I don't really want to cut it or leave some things out, so I'm just going to let it keep going until I actually finish everything I need to say. Alright, and the last thing I want to say is there's actually a few videos like this out on YouTube, but they're all outdated, and none of them are essentially giving you the new information, the new tips that we've since worked out since the game's been released. So this video is essentially just an updated version of the essentials you need to know on Sea of Thieves. Okay, so if you didn't know, I actually upload a lot of Sea of Thieves content, and I'm essentially the first person on YouTube who uploads how to complete the weekly events. So if you're interested in finding out how to complete all these weekly events within the first couple hours upon release, and you want to be some of the first people in the world to do it, feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because that's essentially all I do. And if you want to join a community with heaps of people who play Sea of Thieves, feel free to join my Discord. It's a very friendly community, and yeah, hope to see you in there. Alright, so what I've essentially done is I'm going to break this video down into different parts, because there's many different things I want to get through, but the only way I can really get through them effectively is by using them in different sections. So I'm essentially going to be running through the basics and combat and item placement and ranking up and just sort of everything you need to know about Sea of Thieves. So to start this video off, we're actually going to start with the basics. So if you already know the basics and you don't want to learn some new tips, assuming you don't know them already, please skip ahead about a minute or 2 minutes and I'll be going on to the next topic. Alright, so starting simple, essentially Sea of Thieves is a cross-play game, so you will actually be in games with people on PC and people on Xbox. So sometimes people on PC can be a little bit more skillful than people on Xbox just because they have a mouse and keyboard. That being said, it's not overly too hard to get around that. I should also probably point out there's actually two different types of people you'll meet in Sea of Thieves. First of all, you have the green names, and then you have the white names. Another useful tip is also when you're out sailing, you should probably look at the wind and make sure your sails are always adjusted. And if you want to know how to level up and you want to know how to deal with the factions, feel free to have a look at my other videos, because I've actually already done a video about how to complete those factions and get the most amount of money for your time. Now, of course, if you didn't know, there's actually a sword glitch you can do if you hold your right trigger or your click, depending on what you're playing on. That'll essentially allow you to go flying forward, so just do use that. I know it's probably basic, but a lot of people either still don't use it. Alright, so that's essentially coming to the end of the basics. Now, moving over to combat, I mean, the best thing you could probably do is assume that everyone's hostile, but never be the first person to attack. Alright, so another very useful tip when it comes to combat is always have your cutlass on you. I mean, it's always good to have a cutlass, because that way you won't ever run out of ammo. Now, I can't say the amount of times that I've actually been in a fight and haven't had a cutlass and I don't have any ammo to kill anyone with. Personally, I usually run a sniper and a cutlass, but a blunderbuss is also pretty powerful. It sort of just depends on the playstyle you're after. I mean, if you feel like you can get the shot in, I'd always suggest going for the sniper, but if you don't feel too confident with aiming, then I'd definitely say go for a blunderbuss. Even though the blunderbuss has gotten a nerf, it's still pretty powerful from a close range, and you can pretty much put someone down instantly with a couple shots from a blunderbuss. The only catch with that is you need to be sort of close to the actual opponent when you do fight them, but it's not that bad. Personally, I wouldn't recommend the pistol at all. It's not really good for too much in my opinion, but if you like it, then feel free to use it. Now, another thing with combat, it's usually always a good thing to try and avoid combat if you're not too confident within your ability, but that being said, even if you do go into combat, don't worry about it too much. Just try not to freak out. Staying calm in combat is probably one of the best things you can probably do in a real life sense. Anyway, so aside from that, combat's pretty simple, just swing and hit and shoot and kill essentially. Alright, so moving on to the next topic. This one's actually a little bit different. This one is one that I haven't seen covered literally anywhere. It's essentially item placement. Now, the first thing I want to say is if you don't feel confident, hide your loot as best as you can. There's a few spots. Now, I'm sure there's probably a few videos online that can actually show you how to do these, but I'm pretty sure I'll make a video on it soon, so feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you're actually interested in seeing that. That being said, I'd just like to quickly say that there are actually a few little nifty spots you can actually put things. So for example, you can put things on the mission tables and also on the map. I like to put skulls and all those small little things on the actual mission table because it's actually very easy to get to and I don't find myself actually forgetting it if it's there. Where if I was to put it under the ship or in the captain's quarters, I'm sure I'd be way more likely to lose it. Now, if you actually want to know some good hiding spots in the ships, feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell because I'm going to try and get that video up as soon as I possibly can. But that'll just be a quick matter of working around my schedule and whatnot. So we'll try and get that up as quick as possible. Alright, so moving on to actually how to rank up. Now, as I said earlier in the video, I do actually have like 3 different videos on how to complete the factions. If you want to know some really descriptive detail, feel free to watch them, but I'm just going to run through like the basics now in this video. Alright, so essentially there's 3 different outposts and factions you can actually go to on your spawn island. Now do keep in mind that you don't always actually spawn at an outpost. That being said, whenever you're at an outpost, do go for the Order of Souls, the Gold Hoarders, or the Merchant Alliance. Now to find them is actually pretty simple. The Order of Souls is found in a purple little place under a building, the Gold Hoarders is in a greenish yellow tent, and the Merchant Alliance is always on the dock. Now they're pretty easy to work out what you do, just essentially the Gold Hoarders is getting chests, the Order of Souls is killing skeletons, and the Merchant Alliance is transporting things like gunpowder barrels and animals. Personally, my favourite to do was Gold Hoarders, but I'm sure if you want to get to Pirate Legend you have to do all of them, so I'd probably suggest by doing your least favourite one first and doing your favourite ones later on. It just makes the grind for Pirate Legend a little bit more enjoyable in the long run. That being said, do it any order you like, but that's just what I found to be useful. Now, aside from the three main ways of getting ranks, another really great thing to do, and this is actually what's going on in the background of my video, is to do forts. Now, they are usually really good, and they often give you around 10,000 coins and a bunch of XP upon completion. A thing I like to do is actually server hop, so essentially you just find a fort, and if there's no fort in the sky, then go to another server and just keep repeating until you find it. That's actually the most beneficial way to get forts and level up. Also, I just want to quickly say that forts are usually a hotspot for people, so just be careful and do expect to find other ships there. I'm sure if you use the combat tips that I've suggested, and even if you use the cannons, they're pretty easy to sink, and all forts have gunpowder barrels, so try and use them to your advantage, and make sure you don't get sunk with them. Now, another really great thing you can do, and this is actually way more common, is do the sunken ships. And by sunken ships, I mean there's usually shipwrecks that are scattered around the map, and they're fairly easily spotted by birds that fly around in the sky. But do keep in mind there are actually barrels that you can find in the water, and the way you tell the difference between them is the amount of birds that are flying overhead. The area with the most birds flying overhead, they're usually the shipwrecks, and the ones with the less amount of birds are actually just the barrels. Now, doing a shipwreck is always a great idea, because as long as you're the first person there, you're always guaranteed something. That being said, if you're not the first person there, then usually the person before would have gotten everything. But anyway, that being said, I'd always suggest doing them. It's worth going out of your way for shipwrecks. Another really great tip is actually to look out at the shore, because they have recently added in loot inside the water. Now, it is actually uncommon you can find loot in the water, but it has happened before. And of course, on islands, there's also different bits of loot you can actually find. So when you're doing your missions, just feel free to look around, because there's a high chance you'll probably end up finding something that you didn't know was actually there. Now, these can actually range between castaway chests to fine sugar to captain's chests to villainous skulls. There's essentially no set item that you will find, but usually there's always good value you can actually find on those islands or in the water. Now, they're actually the essentials of ranking up. I mean, there's a few other things you could probably do, but that's just everything you need to know. Now, another really important thing that I have to actually stress, this is extremely important. I mean, I know I said that twice, but just get it into your head, alright? So essentially, as I said, another really important thing you can do is hotkey placement. Now, the things you're actually going to want to assign is bananas, planks, weapons, and a bucket. They are all things that you'll probably need more often than not every time you play Sea of Thieves, so it's always good to have them assigned. I'm not actually going to tell you what you should assign them to, but just anything you can, feel free to do that, because it is extremely important. Now, this is actually a way more updated thing, but something they've recently added was actually alliances. Now, I'd always suggest an alliance for when you're doing harder tasks in the game, for example, forts and skeleton ships. It's usually a good idea if you don't think you can take them on yourself, or the crew that you're with doesn't feel too confident on completing them, is to usually form an alliance. More often than not, people will actually form the alliance with you, but the chances are they'll end up turning on you just as you go to sell things. So, I mean, always make sure you're the second person to sell, no matter the circumstance. And do be wary that they might try and turn on you and steal your loot when it's all done, so just try and keep your distance. That being said, I have had a lot of times where the alliances have actually turned out pretty well and there's been no backstabbing that's actually gone on, but as long as you make sure you're always the second person to sell, it's never a bad thing. Now, another thing about selling, when you're in an alliance, the person who sells the actual loot gets 100%, and the person who doesn't gets the 50%. Now, that 50% isn't actually taken out of the cut that the main person that sells it gets. So you could essentially go around to servers until you find everyone who's in the same alliance and just all do your own missions, and you can easily level up. That's actually something I've done before, and it is actually really effective. Now, as I said, just assume people are actually going to betray you, so just try and play it safe. And always keep your distance and look out for yourself first. That's essentially it for the essential bits of information that I actually find useful. Once you complete the quote-unquote main game, you do get this thing called Pirate Legend. Now, I'm just going to quickly talk about Pirate Legend. Now, my essential tip with Pirate Legend is everything down there is extremely expensive. You're going to want to go in there with at least 1.5 to 2 million to sort of get everything you need. And when you actually do these Athena's quests, they are actually insanely long, so I'd always suggest having a friend with you, or just make sure you can set aside some good time to play it. Because usually you'll get it done in about 1 to 2 hours. If you're really good, you could probably get it done in about 45 minutes, but either way, it's quite difficult. Now, I'm not going to tell you what you can expect from Pirate Legend, I'm just going to let you guys get it for yourself, because I think it's worth waiting for. But anyway, that's essentially been all the main bits of information that you need to know while playing Sea of Thieves. And as I said, this is an updated version, so a lot of things that I've said now are very different back then. And yeah, so that's essentially it. Now, as you can probably tell, this has actually been a longer video than what I usually make. My goal is to try and make videos as short as possible, but I couldn't really fit this into a smaller video. So I thought I'd just make one big, massive video. Now, if you've enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. Now, when you subscribe, it actually helps out the channel, and it actually helps you guys out as well, so you'll be the first people to actually get information about the new updates and how to complete the new updates. Because if you don't know, essentially all I do is upload videos on Sea of Thieves and how to complete these events within the quickest time possible, and I've always been the first person to release these events since I started making my channel, so it's a very good idea to subscribe. Now, just quickly while I'm plugging my own stuff, and I'm sure you guys hate it, but just if you're interested, I do have a Twitter and a Discord and some music down below. Now, with music, I actually make a lot of my own music, so most of the music you hear in my videos are actually made by me. So if you want to see them and you want to hear them, feel free to go to them. Alright, so that's essentially been it, guys. If you've enjoyed, please feel free to leave a like, and I'll see you all in the next video.